It's time to take a test drive with the all-new Lexus RX, new generation here today in our driving review on Autogefühl with Thomas in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with this gigantic front. I mean, when you look in the back mirror, when you're in the front of that one, it looks like a train is approaching. Look at that. I mean, like again, this samurai style by Lexus design. Huge grille here. Well, can't stress that enough. This is the main design detail. The headlamps here in this new daytime running light signature, main headlamps, small LEDs above that. And the turning indicators, they do not replace the daytime running light, they appear above that, but I think looks quite fancy, doesn't it? The length is at 4 meters 89 or 192 inches. It's more or less the same, just the wheelbase has been increased by 6 centimeters or around 2.5 inches indeed. Big microphone today, by the way, because there's a lot of background noise and a lot of wind here today, so best sound quality for you. Wheels 21 inch, this is here the RX 500H in the F Sport trim, so this is the sportiest model visually, but also in driving with the 2.4 liter turbo engine. Soon more about the engine setup. And this one here also comes with all-wheel drive, and then the all-wheel drive is consisting of electric drive on the rear axle. So there's no combustion engine drive on the rear axle. The all-wheel drive then comes from the additional electric motor there. We'll see in the driving part how that plays out. In the rear we have this cool new light strip. That looks amazing indeed. And you might wonder, what the hell is this? Well, this is a US spec vehicle, and that means there's no fog light. We need that in the European Union to drive with that, to be allowed to drive with that. And that's why they needed to attach something extra in the lower part there. So yeah, it's kind of like a weird aftermarket solution when you want to have a US spec vehicle run on European roads. Yeah, that's it. Acceleration figure here for the RX 500H. That means it's the top model, H with the hybrid and direct 4 all-wheel drive, 6.2 seconds to 1 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour. This is the car key, nothing special in this case. The door handles here, they are still, let's say, for real. They look like they would be coming out, but they don't. But they have like this real haptic feedback on the backside at least. Door closing sound. That's solid, like that. And look at that, also very small gaps here for the, for the build quality, like that as well. Inside of the doors, or soft touch materials. We also have here this microfiber insert in the F Sport, Mark Levinson's sound system. And then here, to open the door from the inside, you have this small press, and this like the electronic feature, and then it goes open. You have to get used to it, but why not? And then the manual one would be pulling it. This is then the manual opening just for emergency reasons. Then the F Sport has this sportier entry badge and also the floor mat with contrast stitching, as well as a sportier steering wheel with F-Sport inset there. Then here the contrast stitches white on the inside and perforation on the outside. These here are still real buttons on the steering wheel. So also good. As for the seats, these are also the F Sport seats here in that trim, and the 500H top model does only come with animal skin. However, if you want to go animal free, you can pick new Lux material, or is also called differently in the UK, so-called Tahara, and that one is available for lower trim models. You just have to check the configurator then in your individual market. The material itself, it feels always quite similar no matter which one you go for. And here when I press the ignition, then the steering wheel comes towards me. You see that the seat also goes forward. And this is the thing about the Lexus vehicles also, they're always something is beeping in this case because the door is open, the ignition is on, so press it twice, then it's gone. Yeah, but beeps is always the thing with this vehicle here, definitely. With 189 or 6'2", the headroom is still something left indeed. This is also one here with panoramic roof. This is a manual slider. I always say, like, why not? There's a nice covering also from the ceiling. Slide that one open, and then you can also open this one here completely. Yeah, either this step here, or then, here we go. This is then a complete opening. It's not too large, more a classic small roof. Interior cockpit overview. Of course, this new center is this 14-inch screen. Base versions would also start with a smaller 10-inch, but most then will get, or top spec will get here the 14-inch screen. On the steering wheel, as I said, still real buttons, for example, also to control something in the instruments. And here on the left side, there's this electric control of steering wheel up and down and so on. Zoomer deals to instruments and the screen. What is obvious is also that you can still control the climate unit in a more or less manual way, like the Ford Mustang Mach-E. So, it basically interacts with the screen then here, but there's a physical input, so why not doing it that way? And then a real volume knob here to control that. We also have a separate button for the camera view, and this has a very interesting animation right here. You can see all the way around then. Yeah, that looks almost like like gaming alike, doesn't it? Then in the lower part, 2 USB-C chargers. Then you can slide this one open. There are more charging possibilities underneath, also inductive charging pad. The shifting lever here has this classic step shape. It's an old school layout. Do you like that? I more prefer when you just like go back and that's it. But here in this case, it's into the manual mode. And then we have cup holders here next to it. They are also adaptive. The overall build quality here is, let's say, okay. Nothing super special for this price segment, I have to say. And also here, when you take a look at that, for example here, yeah, I'm not sure if this is 100,000 K alike. Yes, but you can always say the reliability is good with Lexus. Then here, a lot of space underneath, and you can split open that to both sides. There we go. So there's a new infotainment system then here indeed. Always showing you the temperature. This is then here the vent strength control, for example. And here you can activate or deactivate heated steering wheel and the heated seats and so on. The layout of the car internal system here is, yeah, it's actually quite okay. It's not too much happening there actually. You can go to the basic settings here, for example, for the display. You can also put in a dark or a lighter mode or go for that automatic and change the brightness and so on. There is a car internal GPS, but most of the time you would use then Google Maps over CarPlay or Android Auto. Also wireless connection possible, and the Mark & Levinson sound system here. Let's listen to that. Yeah, that sounds quite cool. More has this concert focus that it more comes from the front, the music. Yeah, but very crystal clear indeed. Instruments, pretty much basic. Doesn't look too modern, I have to say. But here we can see, hey, it's a turbo. That is here, like the turbo visualization for the pressure inside. And you also get a small head-up display. Going on holiday and want to pack the car completely full, also in the trunk, then you can switch here to the digital rear mirror. You can always switch back if you like. So this is really good when the trunk is all the way full up to the limit. Or maybe some prefer that in general. Rear seating area looks kind of similar, just like in the front. Very interesting here, in the lower part, we can actually electronically adjust the back part of the seat here, make it a little steeper or make it more towards like a relaxing position. That's actually quite cool. Inside of the doors here, once again with the same logic here, this is like the electronic opening, this is the fail-safe opening, and we also have the microfiber inside here, but it doesn't look that good from the build quality. Maybe it's one of the early models, I don't know why that is. And also here, this is not that much soft touch. It's not entirely hard, but also, let's say, something in between. Let's get inside, and the legroom is actually, it works. You see here, it works for my size. Behind the seat I'm driving, but it's not plentiful as you would expect from a vehicle in this segment actually. And headroom, that's okay. There's still some space here left above my head. But you see here, I mean, I think for kids it's good because look at how high I'm actually sitting here in comparison to the front seat. The front seat looks tiny in comparison to that. Middle part is also feasible. So yes, you can drive this vehicle with 5 tall Ls, but then I'm sitting very high in here on the middle part. Then we can fold down this armrest here, some space here, but that's build quality wise doubtful in this 100K segment. And then there's some cup holders and someone left some cores here from some fruits. I don't know why that happened. Strange things. Live on Autogefühl. And then we have here, middle part, we have seat heating, seat cooling, also for the rear seats, and USB-C chargers. Let's take a look at the trunk, electric tailgate. There we go. In the front here, we have some more space underneath, and also replacement tire. That's important for our US viewers, of course, always. And then here you can see the width in the front. It's like really wide. And then between the wheel arches, this is a meter or 40 inches, but it's more than that, more like 1 meter 10 or 43 inches, so well usable. This slider here, you see, has rails left and right, so clean solution indeed. And then the length of the trunk is actually also quite good. You see, this is also a meter or 40 inches, and it's even a little bit more than that, so actually pretty cool. To fold the seats, we have here on that side 2 buttons. Here we can press them, and then slowly, this looks interesting because that emergency kit is attached to that. Okay, and that takes ages indeed, but it's a practical solution in a way. And let's measure the full length. So here we go. Full length is 1 meter 77 or 69 inches. And what about folding them up again? There we go. You can go asleep actually while waiting for that, but yeah, maybe we need just to take some more time in nowadays modern world. As for engines, well, this one is running at the moment here. So I'm going to tell you why and also what Porsche have in common with Lexus and Toyota. This one here, the top spec engine, 2.4 liter turbo, 370 horsepower, because we have the hybrid drivetrain here as well. And then we have also an electric rear axle, so we have all-wheel drive. 6.2 seconds in the acceleration figure. If we then want to go, let's say, from top engine a little bit slower, below that is the plug-in hybrid, the 450h Plus, based on a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine. Below that, same base engine, but not plug-in hybrid, but normal inbuilt hybrid, the 350h. And the lowest spec would be the 350 without hybrid. That is then again based on the 2.4 liter turbo. Little bit complicated. Yeah, and why is the engine running? Because recently we have problems with the starter batteries between Toyota and Lexus, that when we do our shooting, leave the daytime running light on and all the electric consumers, because there's so much tech in this vehicle nowadays that when you just turn on the ignition, a lot of energy is being used, and then suddenly the 12-volt starter batteries empty themselves. We had this problem recently with a lot of Toyota and Lexus, and with the Porsche 911. That's what they have in common indeed. It might not be a normal use case, but I just want to warn you, actually, with newer vehicles, don't let them with ignition on and maybe daytime running light on for a longer period of time. It could empty your battery, and then you need starting help when you want to continue your journey. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge or parking lounge, because I first want to show you the rear view camera feature. Resolution here from the main camera could be a little bit better. Then we also have this fake drone view from above, and that is, for example, showing us how we can, properly get into a box here, for example. It's a little bit of a mismatch between this camera and the other one. Look at that. On this camera, it looks like I would be completely even in the box. And this one, it looks like I'm a little bit off. So, yeah, I don't know. Which one is right, Jonas? Look at that. Look outside the door. Is it here? Do we have a lot of space there? Yeah. So this one is probably right. So rather trust the drone view from above camera. Yeah, that's the first finding of this driving part. And look at that. This feature, it also has a kind of transparent bonnet feature here. This is the past image that is being built up, and this is the live image around. It also switches the view that you can see what is happening at the rear axle. So the reason behind it is that when you're driving off-road, you don't catch a stone underneath the vehicle with the tires, and so it basically fakes this image in the middle part here or basically builds up from the live feed. It's very interesting. So again, live feed around and past image then on the lower vehicle, but it really helps that you don't damage anything from things that are underneath. In this case, you know, just this one doesn't do anything. But yeah, it's a very impressive feature indeed. Then acceleration from standstill. That was 52. That was 0 to 52. That went pretty quick. So yeah, great performance indeed. So you maybe saw that we had this combined boost, you know. So there was this instant electric push, and then the combustion engine got active. So yeah, this combined power. It is indeed pretty quick. So this one is indeed then deserving the F Sport name. Yes, we know Lexus has never set an emphasis on being the sportiest or something, but this one is indeed already reasonably quick. We also have the adaptive dampers here then in this top version, so they hopefully give us a good compromise between comfort and sportiness, but we already feel that with these 21-inch wheels, and wheel size is always a thing. Oh, yeah, you see it on this pavement, there were some pedestrians, and the car was reducing the speed because the car was thinking, you know, the pedestrians are too close. Therefore, I was wondering, hey, why is it taking back the throttle? And then it was showing like a symbol in the head-up display with a, you know, with a small person icon. Pretty interesting. So yeah, back to suspension and wheels. 21-inch wheels means you do lose some comfort at some point, especially when you have some bumps in the road. So if you want most comfort out of this vehicle, then the top spec here, F Sport, which always comes with bigger wheels, wouldn't be the main choice, and you would rather stick with smaller wheels. But the suspension actually makes a very good first impression. Turning indicators sound a little bit non-premium, I have to say. So I always pay attention also to these sounds. Also how you use the turning indicators, like when you use the columns. This is rather makes like an older vehicle impression. You know what I mean? In general, as for what we see on the interior, this is of course updated here when you compare it to the previous version, but some of the build quality we've seen doesn't make the appearance like, hey, this is a 2023 high luxury vehicle, you know. The advantage really more about Toyota and Lexus is that in most of the reliability rankings, they always score top positions. As for, hey, something can break, or like the engine fails or breaks or something. Talked about this battery issue thing. That's more an issue, of course, when we film the vehicle. So I can just, again, tell you that rather not let everything run for a longer time without letting the engine run. Then you should actually also be fine with that. Here in the city, by the way, we can make use of that hybrid system. So always when I came to a stop, for example, at the traffic light or something, the car is shutting down the ICE and then just pure electric driving. You have always these, I would say, electric moments. Here, for example, I let the car roll, then EV symbol in the instruments. I'm driving electric with the buffer in the battery. And that's, of course, then ultimately saving fuel. Here now heading towards the motorway, the German Autobahn. That's what we can do today when we are in Germany. And then let's see how this US spec vehicle runs on the German Autobahn in this new generation here, also as for noise insulation. And also, finally, we have, you know, like a lot of power. And switching motorways is always a lot of fun here in Germany, because then you have like fast corners. That is always super fun to do indeed. As for the steering here, it tends to be a little bit loose in this area. So you have not, let's say, the most direct feel, but there's not a big dead zone area. Let's see here, lane change number 1, lane change number 2. And then let's do a quicker lane change. Suspension doesn't shake up too much actually, so that's okay. Yeah, but steering I would prefer a little bit more feel. Wind noise, there are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of wind streams today outside, kind of windy indeed, but it's getting kind of a little bit noisy here now at 130 kilometers an hour or 70 miles an hour. And I have also a good comparison. I drove to this test rig here with the Mercedes GLC, segment below that, but that one was indeed more silent. And here now, German Autobahn, we can go max speed from 130 kilometers an hour. Let's go. Yeah, it's proper shifting here now. 160 kilometers an hour, 170. Now window is picking up. The front hood is shaking. That's interesting. Okay. Maybe I'd rather drive a little bit slower. So at 120 kilometers an hour. And here I can also set the cruise control. The control is basically happening here at the right side steering. And then I see what I'm doing in the head-up display. Okay. Yeah. Kind of get used to it. At least then, you know, my view doesn't go to the instruments. That's the thought behind it, that you can still see everything in a head-up display. But definitely needs some adjustment, you know, because it's unusual. But actually not a bad idea. So cruise control here, and also lane keeping assist. You can activate or deactivate it, and I also see like on and off in the head-up display. Now it is on. Let's see how the car is handling with that. You see here, counter steering measure. So far, so good. And if that would be maybe like two, it's always, yeah, and then it's telling me keep the hands on the steering wheel. Yeah, wasn't the smoothest reaction, and also reacted quite late. Most situations, I think you would turn it off, that you can just steer freely yourself. Here at these normal motorway speeds, it's actually quite fine. So about 1 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. Again, it is quite windy outside today here. As for the ride comfort, talked about it when there are some potholes, then the 21-inch wheels are a problem. Here, when there's more even surface on the German Autobahn, it's not the biggest problem actually. And here the adaptive suspension is also doing a good job here actually. So there's some waves and so on. It's even out very well. I think they found a good compromise here between sportiness and comfort. So indeed, it feels sportier than the previous generation. That's the main difference, especially here in this sportiest top trim. However, they still kept the emphasis on comfort, so they don't want to really compete with the Germans as for sportiness and so on, but rather want to make use of the hybrid system, and also don't set the suspension on the stiffest or sportiest note. And I think that's also a good decision overall. What we can also do is doing a lane change at higher speed. And here, for example, like this. Yeah, and there we see it's actually quite fun. It's cool. Also, the seats are keeping me tight very well. So it's, you know, good bolstering that you don't fly all over the place inside the vehicle. But from the suspension, definitely the emphasis is not on the sportiest handling, but that is, to me, absolutely okay. That was some faster driving. What I also want to do is check the consumption. Yeah, with the hybrid drivetrain, you can make more use of that in the city. But let's also check how it is here on the motorway. But therefore, we have to clear the data first, because we had this big acceleration inside, and it would be rather unfair. So we'll drive a little bit further now and tell you more about the fuel economy on the motorway. And here, look at that, 8 liters on 100 kilometers with predominantly motorway driving and not making use of the hybrid. That's some 30 mpg US, 35 mpg UK. Better consumption figures, of course, when you have some more city traffic. That's a contradiction usually, but not for a hybrid system, because then you can make use of that hybrid. But I also want to show what about like steady motorway consumption and so on, and also at speeds, you know, like 120, 130 kilometers an hour, so around 70, 75 miles an hour. So my favorite thing was really the new 6-speed automatic gearbox that has real gears and not this rubber band effect, you know, from the eCVTs in the other hybrid systems. So that's really cool here in the combination with the new 2.4 liter turbo petrol engine. Other than that, there were some things like, you know, like the wobbling hood, and I think it's not that well attached here with this vehicle. Maybe that's because of the early prototype versions or so on. We'll cover that one later once again, see if this one has improved. This was a little bit irritating when driving on a high-speed Autobahn, for example. But the thing is, it is properly quick now, especially with this engine. So in that way, in performance style, it can now more keep up with the German competition. As for the driving dynamics, it is not set on the sportiest tone, but that's also not the main use case of this vehicle. It's still cool that it has this very comfortable drive and very good seat ergonomics indeed. And if you want to compare the competitors, check out the BMW X5 and the Mercedes GLE.